Hey everybody, welcome back to the 126th episode of Taps and Patience. I'm AJ with Subtract Manufacturing LLC, now here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. Hi Harrison.
What's going on, man?
Oh, not much. Teaching and making parts.
That sounds like my old life.
I think I'm a little bit heavier on the teaching and a little less on the parts than what you were doing right now. What you were doing, but
Oh, definitely. My teaching was fairly light. It was an hour 2 or 3 times a week. Hour every other day or something.
So last week I had 13-hour days of teaching.
Yeah.
Sorry, plus about an hour and 10 minutes of transportation on either side.
It was an hour and a half. That's what it was. Often longer because students would stay behind and stay over to try to learn more, which is fun.
I have some teaching ideas I want to pitch you for some feedback.
Okay. I don't know if I'll be a good sounding board, but I'll try. So
you've done enough that you'll be able to give me good feedback on this.
Okay. So what's going on other than the obviously stated? Do you have some anything major that's changed?
I mean, Subtract became an LLC. We were running as a sole proprietor for a while, but decided to LLC it, and we have started working on going through like the SAM.gov process to get cage codes and stuff, so we can take some contracting, some government contracting. I haven't talked about Subtract in a long time. I feel like I should probably give some updates on that. Subtract is still mostly being handled by Jacob and Josh at this point, with a little bit of weigh-in from Scott occasionally. We're right now focusing on getting our like custom software website stuff up and running to kind of help in a couple places where we are not doing a great job of customer experience and just kind of tracking jobs. So like right now, I don't know, sending tracking information is not that's just a manual step. And sometimes we're late on that. I think we've probably forgotten at least once to send the customer tracking information. You know, telling the customer that their parts have entered production, that like we've chosen a shop. That's something that's theoretically in our processes, but I don't think it's been done once.
Gotcha.
And we're missing those touch points with the customer because our systems are bad and because everything's super manual right now. But the custom software that Jacob and Josh are working on will hopefully automate all of that stuff. So
gotcha.
And automate quote generation and everything like that. So I got to see the first like preview build of it day before yesterday. And it looks so good. They just have a little bit more building out to do.
Yep.
What else with that? We've quoted a couple jobs. I'm working on a Subtract job now because it's a it was originally an Audacity micro customer, and I've made these parts before, and they're a little tricky. These are the classic acrylic cylinders that I seem to specialize in. So I've been doing those. They're a little bit fun because they're these little tiny acrylic cylinders, and this batch is taller than they normally are. Some of them are up to an 1/8 inch tall and 3 millimeters in diameter. Excuse the mixed units there. And in the past, I've done the super glue and tape method a little bit differently, where I put a layer of tape on the bottom of the parts, and then I use the good black super glue to glue it directly to the aluminum fixture. But this time, I did it a little bit differently, where I used like super glue tape, and I used the cheaper super glue. Basically because there were some holes in that fixture that I was using, and I didn't think it would make a difference. But oh boy, has it made a difference. So after the first batch of parts where I got a yield of 0, I ended up just cleaning out my chip tray really, really well. I shoveled it all out and I vacuumed it out. And now I just run the parts and then I go hunting for them in the chip tray. And I make 25 and I only need 12. And so far, I had to do 4 different sizes. And so far, I've lost maybe 2 or 3 parts per size.
Now, you're not running coolant with these, are you?
I am running coolant with these.
Oh, okay.
probably don't need to. Though I did notice the finishes were significantly better than when I was using Air Blast.
Okay. And
The right way to do it would have been to use my Air Blast. I didn't because I had the pressure turned up too high, and I was afraid that it would cause more harm than good. And I was just too lazy to turn down the pressure on it. So if I did these again, I would just turn down the pressure in my Air Blast.
so how are you doing the cylinders? You might have mentioned this in the past, but I have forgotten. Are you just helixing down? Are you just doing a contour around? Like,
I have one of those Datron single flute, like plastic cutting end mills
mm-hmm,
that I think I got for free with my Pocket NC, if I remember correctly.
mm-hmm.
But it's absolutely the right tool for this job, and it does a great job. And I just do a really gentle, slow ramp down, and then I come back and I chamfer the top of them.
Okay.
Which,
So
now
is the
that I think about it, the
that's
parts
probably
are
what
probably gone for when the chamfer happens.
well, there's that, and what you should do is you should helix down part way, do the chamfer, and then come back
That is what I
because
should do.
that's probably what's causing them to jump out.
Yeah. In the past, with the old method only having one layer of tape in there, they didn't run away on me, and the chamfer was fine. But I bet you're right. They look fine. There's no burrs on the top. I think because that tool's so sharp.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a very valid point. If anything, if nothing else, then I'm just wasting cycle time. Not
Mm-hmm.
that 12 seconds of cycle time matters, but
Yeah, but if you just came in and you just did a shallow on all of them, just enough for your chamfer, then came in and did your chamfer on all of them, and then came back and did the rest, I bet your success rate would go up.
yeah, I bet you're right. I wouldn't even need to do any pre wall cutting. It's acrylic. That chamfer tool can go full depth just fine.
Yeah, so just do your chamfer first then.
Yeah. Huh. Didn't think about
So
that.
and the only reason is ironically, I have done both super gluing and really tiny cylinders both this week on my machine.
Classic. How tiny is
um about a 1/16 inch diameter at about
It's pretty small.
about 0.3 inches, so just over a quarter inch long.
Okay. So that's a long aspect ratio though.
Oh, very, very.
What
It's
were
304.
these mill parts?
I did
Lathe
them on the
parts.
mill. I mean, they could have been done on the lathe, but I did them on the mill. So, and what it was,
Traditional op one and soft jaws or
no, I did it all in one op.
with super glue?
No, this one was not super glue. This one I just put in a big chunk of stainless. So the super glue was different parts. These parts, so it was a piece of stainless that I just had in my scrap bin, and I just clamped it in a vise, and then I just came in and just with a tiny end mill just went down, and then used a slitting saw to come underneath it,
Oh.
and then after I did that, I left just a tiny tab to where the thing was bent over really far, and then I just wiggled it and it snapped right off, and then I just took it over to a piece of sandpaper and dusted off the end.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it worked really well. So, um, I did like 4 of them, but I only needed one good one, and it wasn't for a customer; it was for myself.
Hmm.
I needed a pin to hold something in place, and so I just whipped up a quick program, and then I didn't want to cut up a gauge pin for it. So basically,
Yeah.
I made kind of my own for this specific purpose. And it was just a fun, quick little program. And then once I did the first one in the corner, and I wanted to keep using that material, I just used a linear pattern and then skipped the original. And then I just duplicated that whole setup so I could see the previous material cut. And so I could just keep moving it around in the material, just cutting fresh material every single time,
Yeah.
until I got the size and fitment exactly where I wanted it. Um, and then I just ran like 4 of them.
Cool.
So I could have done it in a lot less, except I didn't mic the first 2. I just plugged it in and assumed it was close enough. But after I mic'd it and then tweaked it, it came out perfect. So, but it was what it was is I was fixing a customer had brought me a gun a while back, and they had wanted a sight milled into the front of it, and I haven't done those in a while. So I whipped up the program and I ended up overcutting an area on it just a little bit. And so they said it'd be fine if I just used a pin to hold it in place.
Okay.
And so I needed that pin to basically hold the front sight in place. And so yeah, so I just did that with because I had some free time, and the customer said that he was going to take care of it. He said it wasn't a big deal and that he would just take care of it on his end. But we were so slow last week, and it's been sitting in on our done table for like a month, and he hasn't come by to pick it up. And I was like, well, he said I could do this, so let me just give it a shot and see if I can make it work. And I did. So it's just a fun little side project, side quest.
Yeah.
So that when he comes by, I can be like, hey, that mistake, it's fixed.
Yeah.
So
I did a side quest yesterday where I started making some Aroa pallets for my, now that I have the Aroa system set up like I want it and I'm not just running that production job. I made 2 super glue pallets yesterday so that I can swap between them when I'm doing the super glue work, so I don't have to wait for cure time on the machine. And then I didn't actually get a chance to run them, but I have a half bar of, it's either 3.5 or 4 inch diameter aluminum,
mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna just run, a half dozen or a dozen blanks out of those. I'll probably do some that are like 2 inches thick and some that are like 4 inches thick, and I can use those as, whatever palette as I want. I can use them as kind of a mini tombstone with my horizontal Aroa setup. And I saw a video, or no, it was an Instagram post where somebody had a really cool Aroa like window frame machining fixture, and I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to copy that one and use that.
Nice.
So I've needed to run. Oh, and I picked up a used 5th axis little dovetail vise, one of the little itty bitty ones. So that's also going to get in a Aroa mount.
Gotcha.
But other than that, it's just been the acrylic cylinders, and some of those are mirrored cylinders. Some of those aren't. They're all for optics purposes. So I put tape on both sides of the acrylic. The fun part of that is you then get to take the tape off of the acrylic when you're done. The tape being to protect from scratches.
Yep.
But other than that, teaching, which I wanna get back to in a minute here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I have 2 cool things I saw recently that I want to talk about. But let's get your weekly update first.
Yeah. So the CMM has come in, and it's been sitting
Woo!
in. It's been sitting on our floor for about a week now, waiting on the tech who's supposed to show up
Boo!
this week. So
Woo!
um, it's a little bit of a stressful deal.
Boo!
The crate itself is massive,
Uh
and it
huh.
came in on a truck, an enclosed truck, and it basically, if you can imagine an enclosed semi truck, it took up the entire volume
Uh huh.
of like the whenever it's opened, except for a little bit at the top. And then it was a square, so it was the same width as it was depth. And but it only weighed like 2 or 3,000 pounds. And so we had a forklift. We opted to not go with rigging, but it meant that we were responsible for it. So we unloaded it with our forklift. And that was very stressful and slow and very careful.
Hey, at
And
least you weren't trying to do it on a pallet jack with a lift gate and a truck driver and sandals.
yeah. And then once we got it out of the truck, it was a very slow crawl to the shop across the gravel and uneven
Yeah.
driveway. So, and we had, a couple bumps that we had to kind of creep down and then creep up with the forklift to try to not bang it around. It had all sorts of shipping sensors to, detect if it's had
Hmm.
a big drop or anything in shipping. Once we got it inside and we called them, they said that we are not allowed to uncrate it or do anything until the tech shows up so they can validate that nothing was damaged in shipping. So it's just been sitting inside, and the forklift's been outside in the weather because there's no room inside the
With
building
giant
for the
box in
fork
the way.
with a giant box in the way for the forklift. So we opted to leave the forklift outside and the CMM inside.
Probably a
So
good call. Do you at least throw a tarp over your forklift or something?
no, we put the seat down to where, if you got on it, it would be dry and whatnot. And we took the key out and
So it
basically,
doesn't run away on you.
so it doesn't run away on us. And it's funny because we have the garage door opener hanging from it, and we almost forgot that. And I said we should probably take that because that's a get into the shop free pass. So took that off and tried to make sure there was nothing else that we could leave behind that would tempt people to mess with it.
Yeah.
So, um, but it's sitting outside. It should be inside this week. And then other than that, we've been pretty slow. Just got a lot of potential work in the air. We did get the material in for the medical parts for the first
Cool.
200 that they had ordered. Weston opted to go for a 4-foot bar instead of a 3-foot bar this time. And so we're getting the material cut from our material supplier, but they can't heat treat it. So we're sending it to a different heat treater. And that heat treater said, if you do 3-foot bars, I can hold it vertical, and then they're less likely to warp. If you do larger than that, I have to lay it horizontally, and there's a strong chance that they'll warp. Well, Weston wanted to try it, and they came in and they are warped like a pretzel.
Oh no.
So we're gonna have to cut them into 1-foot sections or something else because they're just not going to work in their current state.
Were these? Is this round material and lathe or?
Round lathe.
Hmm.
And
So you have to run them chucker mode.
Yeah,
instead of bar fed.
They're a 1-inch long part, so we could cut them into a 1-foot section and get 10 parts out of it, probably, maybe, but they're just bent really bad. And the guy warned Weston about that, but Weston took the risk, and it's going to bite us in the butt now. So, and I don't know how that hardened material is going to go in the saw. We haven't tried it yet.
What? So, it's like 60 Rockwell, right?
52, somewhere in that range.
I don't know if that is going to go in the saw.
So we got to figure out how to split it now because it can't go in the lathe the way it is right now. It's gonna vibrate all over. I don't even know if it could go down the tube without it wedging itself in there because it's bent pretty bad. It's bent to put it in perspective, if you're to hold both ends of the 4-foot bar, it's probably drooping about an inch down in the middle. And the bar is about 1.5 inches in diameter.
1.5 inches in diameter. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or inch and a quarter, something like that. 1.25 inches,
do you think it would be cheaper just to go buy more material?
I don't know because Weston's been ordering the material, so I have no idea what we have in it right now, personally. Because he ordered all this stuff while I was on vacation, so I'm out of the loop in terms of how much cost we have in the material. But I know how much we're getting for the parts, and if the material is a significant portion of that, then I don't really want to get more material.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if you're going to spend more time screwing around with the bad material, especially on parts where quality is super important and they're being CMM'd and...
The parts are short, so I'm not worried about that. The parts are only 1 inch long.
Well, but if it makes your process variable, there's just some inherent risk with variability.
There is, but there's also the problem that we don't have enough time, I think, to get more material and to get them by the due date that we said we were going to get them by. Because it's going to be a 2 or 3 week lead time to get more material on order, to get it over to the heat treater, and for the heat treater to get it over to us. It just adds an extra week or two to us getting that material.
This is going to be a reoccurring order, right?
Potentially, yes.
Could you go ahead and get the materials on order for the next batch?
We're going to
just as a safety mechanism in case these go wrong.
We're already going to have to do that because they ordered 800 more. So this is for the first 200, and then they raised the quantity to 1,000. So we're already ordering more material. That's already coming. And so assuming that if that material showed up in time and worked, then we could do the first 200 out of that and then keep working on the next 800 and then order more material and do a third order just for the 200 to backfill the last little bit, worst case. But we're going to try to make this material work so we can get started on it at the very least.
How fast is your turnaround from heat treat?
It took a little while, I think like a week or two.
So you couldn't have them anneal them, take them to your saw, cut them, send them back to heat treat for hardening again?
No, that'd take way too long.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure what we're going to do there. It's going to
Yeah, an
be
inch and a half, inch and a quarter. That's like you aren't just going to angle grinder through that pretty easy, like quick and easy.
no, but if I get desperate enough, I might try.
Yeah, exactly.
So I
I
think
don't
we're gonna
know.
I think we're gonna have to do 3-foot sections going forward because we cannot have that bow.
No,
And we did the first one out of a 3-foot, and it was fine. So
you could do.
what annoys me is that it looks like they just held it on the ends, and then why didn't they just stick something in the middle or try to support it along the full length?
It it didn't droop because it got hot. It's not getting that hot, and there's no force on it. It's
I
not
don't,
like you put a some PLA in a warm car and it drooped down.
that that or the heat treat's uneven, and
Yeah,
whenever
it
they
would have been
cool it,
uneven cooling, which wouldn't have mattered if it was more supported.
yeah. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is. I just know that they can do 3-foot vertically, and that makes it a lot more consistent. But they have to do four. They have to do over 3 foot horizontally,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
so
if your bandsaw wouldn't touch it, you could do mill bandsaw and just go hold it in a couple vices and go zip 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 zip
yeah,
with an end mill.
that's another option.
Yeah, like a half-inch end mill should have enough stick out, and you're losing.
If I did anything, I'd do a high feed mill, just like I
Yeah.
was slotting, and then I can go narrower and have a long. I have a 1/4 inch high feed end mill that has enough length to get through it.
Okay,
So
that's a good plan B.
mhm.
Um, there's no way you could like rough turn it to get it to the correct size,
No,
like
there's.
in a
I mean,
manual lathe or
it's way
something.
too out of spec for that. We thought about trying to press it in our press to try to straighten it out, but one, after it's heat treated, I don't know if it's going to take that, and two, I don't know if that's going to introduce new stresses that'll cause problems down the line.
Yeah, not yeah. At 50 something Rockwell, you probably could bend it without it just shattering. But yeah, that doesn't sound like a fun game to play.
No, I don't. I don't want to do that. I would rather cut it and do it in shorter pieces than risk having new problems because of bending. Because then
Yeah.
I think it would affect it negatively for its application and cause random stresses.
Yeah, or like micro fractures or something that you're not
Something
going to pick up without like a X-ray or something.
something that'll bite the customer and that will end up hurting our reputation.
Yeah. I mean, no, I think you have the right idea. I can't think of a better alternative in a short period of time. If you
Yeah,
had a long period of time, sure, anneal it, straighten it, reharden it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
well, that
So
sucks.
yeah, but I mean, it's life in the job shop world. Um,
Yep.
Weston made that call while I wasn't here, and now we'll just make it work one way or the other.
Make sure you make a note on this
Yeah,
job and
yeah,
pro shop.
yeah. Ideally, it'd be nice if we could get the bars hardened from the manufacturer,
Yeah.
but they won't do that. Yeah, so at least we haven't found anyone. If anyone knows, I think it's a 420 stainless, which is technically a steel. If anyone knows of a,
It's not a steal.
it's 420 stainless is classified under the steel. Under like when you look at machining types, 420 shows up under steel.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's like a Martin Sidic stainless, but
Mm-hmm.
or Faradic stainless. One of the
Something like
two.
that.
I think it's a Martin Sidic stainless, but
Like all of our tooling suppliers that we talk about it recommend tooling that's designed for steel.
interesting.
Mm-hmm. So if anyone knows of a supplier that can do I believe it's 420 stainless, hardened to around 50 Rockwell. 48 is the minimum, but we've been getting it at around 50. That would be ideal.
Yes, it is Martin Sidic.
So
I think it's still stainless because
No,
it
I mean
gets to be
it's still stainless, but you
it
can't
cuts like steel
when you
when it's
recycle
soft.
it. At least our recyclers will not take it because it's magnetic. They classify it as steel, even though we tell them it's
Oh,
stainless.
that's
They
because they don't
will.
want to pay extra for it.
And when you look at the Haas chart of like the different material groups, it shows up under steel on that one.
That's interesting. When I've sold 420 and 440 as scrap, they've taken it as a Martin Siddick stainless.
Yeah, our recyclers will not take it as stainless. They will only take it as a steel.
Because like
So
17.4 is the same way.
yeah, I don't know.
But
I don't want to fight them, so I just leave it be. You got
yeah.
lever A and lever B, and I just lever B. So
Have you considered running these parts on your mill, holding them in your spindle?
that would involve cutting them into a much smaller, shorter chunks.
Well, you need to do that anyway. So,
um,
guys, I was joking. Podcasters, or podcast listeners, stop commenting. I was joking. This is one of the really cool things that I saw on social media that I wanted to talk about. So,
mhm.
someone in the Sile group, it wasn't under like a business name or anything, so I don't want to just say the guy's name, but it was in the Sile group, had this super cool station. It was like a Lang pallet that had, I think, 6 different OD turning tools on it and like 8 different stations for axial tools so that he could do turning on his lathe.
I
And
think
I've seen people do that by holding like 1 or 2 cutting tools in a vise. I think maybe Grimsmo even did this back in the day with his pivots. But this was like by far the most professional setup I've seen. It was like anodized, it was on a Lang pallet. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Um,
For those of you curious, I don't know
yeah,
if that's in
I'll
focus.
try to make sure Jacob gets some like pictures in the show notes or something. But it looks very professional. I
Yeah,
wonder it so do you think there's an easy way you could code that? Like I know you could do an offset for different tools and use your lathe cam. I know programming lathes isn't that bad hand coding.
I, I
Um
I would personally think that every single tool would be its own work offset.
yeah.
That'd be the only way that I could think of doing it. But I don't know what it takes to convert um, mill work to work on a lathe because I've never personally had to do it.
I've always wanted to try it. I've also always wanted to fill up my ATC with parts
Mm-hmm.
and then turn them one after the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just buy a lathe is the
Yeah,
right answer. But if you don't have a lathe and you in a pinch, like
yeah,
I don't know, it was
it could
cool.
it could definitely work. I mean, it definitely does work because people do it all the time. So it's a really cool setup too.
Yeah. So shout out to that guy. Regardless, I don't know if he's selling them. I posted a comment. I was like, "Did you buy this? Did you make this? Are you
Yeah.
selling these?" I don't think I would buy one, but I don't know. I was curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So
Oh, the other cool thing I saw is so a week or two ago I posted the using the Aroa system as like a rotary, like an indexer. And Jamie from JSpec Engineering, the guy who makes the anchor point, he
mm-hmm.
posted a palette that he made that had like 15-degree indexes on it.
Mm-hmm.
So for his system, he was able to index it in 15-degree little intervals. Speaking of vendors screwing up, Jamie had some issues with that too. Did you hear about that?
Mm-mm.
He lost a whole batch of his anchor points to anodizers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's not good.
So here's another call out to the network. Subtract needs a good anodizer. We would prefer like a small shop that like will basically treat you as any other machine shop in the system, but you get to choose anodizing and other finishing work instead of machine shop work. So like it'll flow through the normal workflow, but just for anodizing. So if you are a shop and you do anodizing and you're really good at it, and you'll guarantee that there won't be mess ups, at an unusual rate, at normal anodizer rates. I would like to find someone like that for the network. Or if you want to start an anodizing shop, talk to me. And I'm thinking the way we'll do it is we like Subtract will basically quote unquote insure the parts for the shops as they go to ano. So if something goes wrong with ano, Subtract will cover the remakes.
Yeah, because that's the problem with anodizers is they'll only refund you the cost of the anodizing, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't care about the $1 to $2 it costs for this part in anodizing. I care about the 30-40 bucks that I have in the part itself. Like, are you gonna refund me that?
Yeah.
not,
So we want
not
like the most expensive anodizer who guarantees their work.
Yeah. So fair enough.
I I may have lost a Subtract customer
Uh-oh, what'd
by
you
royally screwing up a quote.
do? What'd you do?
So we got a quote for some parts. They were large, and no one in our okay, we have one guy in our network who has capabilities for them, but he was otherwise occupied and wasn't able to make them. So I reached out to someone else I know. I was going to bring them on the network. They were able to do big stuff. It's someone who, it's a shop that I would like on the network. And I had him send us a quote. And the quote came back and I was like, oh, that's a really good price. And I typed it up and I sent it out to the customer. And I got looking at the quote a little bit more closely. The number that I used was the deposit that covered materials and tooling.
Oh.
And so we took that number, we marked it up a little bit, sent it out to the customer. Fortunately, the customer came back and like, as we were typing the email to the customer being like, hey, we screwed up. Sorry. As we were typing that email, the customer emailed us and was like, hey, we got a quote from a different shop. So they had seen our first price. They're like, hey, we got a quote from a different shop. It was cheaper than your guys' quote. And we're going with that option. And I was like, okay, gosh, we're just not gonna send this email. This problem solved itself. We're fine. And then like a day or two later, we got an email from the customer that was like, hey, we actually like you guys and your lead time's better than this other shop. We'll take yours. And I had to be like, so I'm sorry we messed up. And here's the actual price. And like, I think from their perspective, it was kind of a bait and switch.
Yeah.
And we haven't heard from them again. So that was very sad because they had repeat ordered a couple times.
Yeah.
It's like, dang it, we screwed that one up.
So this is a perfect example of a tenet of our company. And that is always be upfront and honest with the customer, in the sense that if you had replied back after they said, hey, we like this other company's price better, if you had replied back and gone, hey, that's good because we had messed up on our end, on our quoting side, then even if
did.
Oh, you did?
We did tell them that we screwed up the quote.
Okay.
We didn't tell them by how much. Because it was a lot.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. But that's something that like I've always tried to do. I find that it's much easier to, as soon as you realize there is a problem, to bring it up and to overstress that it is your fault and your problem and that you want to make it right. And that gains you a lot more grace on the back end. I've had a lot higher success because people screw up, things go sideways. And if you try to hide it, it will probably come out and it will bite you in the butt. So might as well take that bullet on the front end. And even if it leads to a separation or a problem down the line, at least hopefully your reputation does not take the hit for it in a way that would damage other relationships.
Yeah. If circumstances had been different, I would have just eaten the cost and gone for it. Part of our problem was, I don't know if we've talked about the Stripe issues. Oh boy, have we had issues with Stripe. And at the time, Stripe was holding almost 100% of our cash because they were still accepting payments, but they weren't paying us or our vendors. And so they were holding 5 figures of Subtract's cash, and it had been a month plus, and our business is only, I guess we're probably 3 or 4 months old at this point, but this was like Stripe held 5 figures for almost a month,
Mm-hmm.
which as a growing business was kind of a bad thing. And
Kind
it's
of.
really actually killed our momentum.
Yeah.
So,
You cannot let cash stop flowing in the early, because it can really damage things.
yep. And Stripe was like, nah, we aren't going to pay you. We're not going to pay your vendors.
Why is that?
Uh,
Did they have a
so
reason?
they it worked for a while. It worked for a month, and then we just started getting orders, and we went from doing like the first month we did a couple. Well, the first month we didn't even use them the whole month. So the first month with Stripe we did like $1,000 through them, and then the couple weeks after that we did maybe a couple of $100 here and there, and then we got a bunch of orders and we did 5 figures through them in like 2 or 3 weeks. And they went, this is suspicious. And they locked down our account. And they wanted us to verify our banking information and our information. So, like, I sent them in a copy of my license, gave them all of my personal information, and, kind of went through all that. And they needed more access to our bank account, is what they said. They wanted us to link our bank account to their systems. And I have like a local credit union that I work through for both Audacity and Subtract.
Mm-hmm.
I've generally liked them in the past, but the best and worst thing about them is they're a small local credit union. So I just like not walk. I drive over there all the times and walk in and be like, "Hey, this is my problem. Fix it." And they go, "Okay," and they fix it. It's been wonderful. But because they were a small, snowflake of a bank, Stripe was having a hard time linking its account to like my account, and they theoretically had a system where it was possible, but on Stripe's end, it was just broken. And basically, I would get into this loop where I'd like put in my username and password, and then it would ask me a couple extra questions. And if I answered those questions correctly, it would take me back to the first page where I put in my username and password, except it would have 2 different prompts for my username. So the screen would be username, and password. And if I put in my information incorrectly again, there would be 3 slots for my username, and password. And it's just this loop of it being broken.
So,
and if I put in my information incorrectly, it would just say, "Hey, this is wrong." So it knew I was giving it the right information, but it was just broken. And we talked to Stripe support forever.
mm-hmm.
Stripe support was near useless. We spent like, there were weeks of us, constantly contacting them, being like, "Hey, can you fix this?" And and I missed a step in here. There was an option for, like, "Hey, this isn't working. Let's link it manually." And I went through all of those steps, and that required some like extra paperwork and extra documentation. And I got them all of that. And so they had everything they needed for this manual review. And whenever we talked to customer support, one, there's no phone contact with them at all. You had to do it over chat or email.
Mm-hmm.
And every single response would take 3 or 4 days. And the response was always, "Hey, it's under manual review. It'll be done in the next 24 to 48 hours. And this went on for weeks. And we had to be like, "Hey guys, you are holding, 5 figures of money that we need to run this business." And they,
Mm-hmm.
they would send us a cookie cutter reply.
Well,
Eventually, we were able to bully our way onto a phone call with a manager.
mm-hmm.
And we had to be like, "You are holding our money against our will. Like, this is, bordering on illegal." And she's like, "I know, I understand. I'll push things ahead." And then we went back to hey, it'll be reviewed in 24 to 48 hour cycle.
So I got a question real quick.
Yeah.
Is this going to a business account or a personal account on your end?
It was going to a business account.
Okay. Because if it's a personal account and it's over $10,000, there is legal stuff that you got to watch out for because of scam and fraud.
Yeah, we weren't trying to withdraw money though.
It
We
doesn't
were mostly
matter
just trying to get our vendors paid.
when you transfer large
We
amounts,
weren't
and
we
if
weren't
it's
transferring it to our account. So we pay our vendors for Stripe. That's really what we were concerned about.
so Stripe is paying the vendors, or they're depositing it into
Yes.
your account, and then you're okay.
Stripe
Uh,
our vendor payments go through Stripe. And because remember, Subtract makes only a small percentage. Most of our revenue goes to our vendors.
so then, what's the problem with your bank? How's that?
There's
How's
nothing wrong with my bank. So Stripe's interface to link my bank to Stripe was broken.
and that won't allow them to pay the other vendors because of that?
So that wouldn't let Stripe finish their review. So it forced them into a manual review basically.
Okay.
And they just weren't doing that manual review.
Have you thought about switching to like a bigger bank like
Well,
Harvest?
this gets into the resolution. So yes, that was the what we eventually started working on. Because I was opening a new account for Subtract, I was like, okay, let's this is a convenient time to LLC. Before we had it written in our paperwork that we were gonna go from a sole proprietor to an LLC when we hit $200,000 in month or in annual revenue. It's the exact same thing I've done for Audacity and
Mm-hmm.
Design the everything. There's no reason to do it right away. But I was like, okay, well, let's register. We became an LLC. We opened up a checking account with a big online bank, and they had to do their own review. So I applied for that. I put in all for my information, and they're like, okay, cool, we'll get back to you in a day. And while I was waiting for that to come back, I went I was just flailing at this point, and I went, I wonder what happens if I try to do this in Edge. Freaking Edge worked. First try. Connected, the bank's connected up right away. It just doesn't work in Chrome or Opera or Firefox or Safari. But freaking Edge made it work. It linked. We had to poke their review team 4 more times over the next 6 days. But then they're like, oh yeah, you're good to go. And they released everything.
Well, that's good.
But it was miserable. If we didn't have to work with Stripe,
So
we
why do
wouldn't.
you
But
have to
Stripe
work?
is really good. Stripe
Why?
is just the best payment processor, and it's
Mm.
already half integrated.
Mm.
So, I mean, there's other ones, but Stripe is the best. Their customer service just sucks.
So what makes them the best?
They're the biggest and the only ones that have really good APIs and stuff.
Mm.
So, and everyone knows how to use them.
Fair enough.
Eventually, we got it. They also do all of our payments and stuff to our vendors. They handle all of that. It's who everybody uses. Xometry uses Stripe. Kickstarter uses Stripe. Etsy, eBay. No, eBay is probably all through,
PayPal.
but everybody uses Stripe.
Fair enough.
It's also the lowest fees.
We used Stripe for a while, but then we got rid of it. So we use QuickBooks. So
I wonder if QuickBooks goes through Stripe.
I don't know.
They're
It's
that
cheaper.
big.
It's cheaper than Stripe
In terms of what?
in terms of payment processing.
Do you know what your fees are?
Not off the top of my head. I just know that with QuickBook, it's basically free as long as we use their app. And if people pay with credit card, we charge it. It's basically free. So I mean, there's a small charge, but it's much smaller than Stripe was.
That's good.
So we just have to use their app and then their reader. So, but I don't know what it would be like for website integration. I don't know about that side of it.
Yeah.
So,
but anyway, that's all sorted. And we needed to become an LLC soon because, again, I wanted to get all of the government contracting stuff sorted out. Which, have you guys done that? Do you have a cage code? And
I think we have all that. I'm pretty sure we had to get that whenever we did the battleship parts.
But, interesting.
Because most of the legal and paperwork stuff Weston handles like 90% of that. And then like I just go, what do you need from me? Is there a problem? You got it handled? Great.
Yeah.
I hate paperwork with a fiery passion. I am horrible at it. I'm horrible at staying up with it. Weston is a detail person who can and is extremely organized and has everything laid out. And so it's like I will make parts.
Yeah. I've been working on that. Right now, I'm just kind of waiting because, Subtract is a fairly new business entity, and it
Mm-hmm.
takes a while for the IRS to get us in their records. And sam.gov needs to confirm us with the IRS first.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting a couple weeks here before I can continue with that. I'll probably need to do ITARs and get that stuff figured out and
Mm-hmm.
figure out how in the world we're going to do that with our network
It's probably like
next. But
Xometry where every shop has to have their own.
yeah, I would imagine we probably just need to find like an ITAR shop that we send our ITARs work to.
Yep.
But there's also like not all government work is, you know, fighter jets and NASA. Like I was browsing their catalog and there's a like their request for quotes because that's all public information.
Mm-hmm.
There was a request for someone or for like a national park that wanted fake cannons. They just wanted like aluminum cannons turned and then painted bronze. And it's like, we could have done that if we had someone with a big enough lathe.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how well that's going to work out. I don't know if that's the route that we should be going, but not looking down it, I think, is a dumb idea. Because, like, basically, if Subtract can handle all of the paperwork and overhead and compliance stuff, and then just the shops are making the parts. It's basically it gives the shops that join our network a good way to get those government jobs when they would never be able to before.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at some of the Xometry contracts too, and they actually haven't done as much as I would have thought. So we may not be competing super heavily with them in the same realm.
Fair enough. Well, I'm about out of things from my time. Did we want to go over the Patreons and maybe some questions?
Yeah.
Unless you got some more stuff.
So we have Patreons as a show, and they support us in things like being able to have Jacob to do our editing and posting and stuff like that. It's not too long here until we're going to need to start using that money for IMTS 2026, which is wild to think about. Our Patreons include, but are not limited to, Daniel R., James at Moultrie Made, Ryan at Strato Manufacturing, Austin W., Kyle K., Devin at Sinister Machine Works, James N., Ben at Prickly Pear Prototypes, Cam S. Shep Alderson. No, Shep at Alderson Prototyping. I think he is Shep Alderson. Jacob at Zana Precision, Jason S., Joshua H., Christian Z., Freaky Climber, Prescott at 1Z, 2Z Systems, Trey V., Guy L., Alexander B., Scott Design the Everything, Jamie at J Spec Engineering, maker of the Anchor Point, the thing with the rotating pallets I talked about earlier, Chris Zyke at Zyke Precision, EJ Nocturnal Welding, Chris at Thought Bomb Design, and as ever, Jake Brownson. All of our paid members get early access to our episodes, normally within a day or two of us recording them at this point with Jacob here. If you come join the Patreon at a free tier or at a paid tier, you also get access to our weekly Q&A, which we will do now. Jacob says, not a question, but not a question, but you keep blueballing Jamie by saying you'll talk about him later in the podcast and then never do. We did today. Norman says, for Harrison, in recent episodes, you've talked about firearms manufacturing being some of your primary customers. Are you worried about having too much of your customer base being in one industry? If so, do you have any plans to your customer base?
Diversify your customer base.
So,
I've always had plans to diversify my customer base. I've never wanted any one of my customer bases to be more than 40% of my business. That's been true from day one. In fact, I think I talked about this a while back. I've always wanted to diversify, and the biggest proof of that was when the shop shut down here. So our first big customer that we had was in the food industry, and they were going gangbusters through COVID. And when we got our shop going and running, it was towards the end of COVID, and they still had a lot of orders from COVID that they were trying to get out the door.
Mm.
And we came in and we were busy for about 9 months to a year, just going ham with them. And then for the next year and a half, they basically had no work because as soon as the COVID order stopped, they just nosedived the other direction. So much so that one of their biggest local suppliers had to close down because they were supplying. They were, what was it? Over 80 to 90% of their revenue generation was from that one company, and they had, at their peak, I think they had around 20 employees and about just as many machines, if not more. And then they did have a diversified. So I got a little bit of a backstory after they closed down, just talking to other people. And they were owned by an older guy who started them many years ago, and he sold out to a younger guy. When that younger guy came in, he started growing that relationship with the customer, with our biggest customer at that time. This was before we entered the picture, and he basically lost all of his other customers by focusing on this one, and then they became their sole one, and that continued to grow, especially throughout COVID, where he started getting rid of all of them except for this one. And then as soon as COVID died down and that customer took a dive, they basically lost all of their customers overnight, all their work overnight, and he just had to let people go. He tried hanging on for about a year, and then he had to close his doors. And so I actually had to call and talk to him at one point because that customer was looking for parts that they were making, and I had some questions, and they gave me that guy's number. And so I called him and I talked to him, and he was really cordial over the phone. But after that, I couldn't get a hold of him because I was also interested in buying machines, and I knew he was closing down. And it might have been insensitive of me, but I was like, "Hey, do you need money? Like, I'm looking at getting a machine because we're doing well, and I need a new one. This is around the time I needed the Doosan." And he basically took that the wrong way and just would not talk to me
Mm.
ever again after that. And I think he was just upset at me, not me personally, but just the fact that I was in business with the same company he was in. They basically tanked his company,
Yeah.
and so that was a whole deal. Um, but yeah, all that to say, I am very aware of diversification. That's the whole reason I got into the gun manufacturing business. Is so I now have customers in the food industry, in the gun industry, in the medical industry. It's what I'm working on right now, and a little bit of military contracting. And my next stop is hopefully some aerospace. So, and maybe oil and gas. Those are the two other industries I'd like to get
These are
into.
just all the industries.
I mean, they're
Consumer
Oklahoma,
goods.
Oklahoma, which is right next door. All of the shops around here do oil and gas or
Yeah.
aerospace. Aerospace and oil and gas are two big industries in this area that we haven't gotten into yet. And so the medical is something that I thought I was going to get into medical last, but they found us. And so honestly, I was not looking for medical. My next step was going to either be oil and gas or aerospace. But medical kind of jumped the line and they found us. And so it's kind of, we're changing our strategy because of the opportunity that was presented to us.
Yeah. Personally, I would say I wouldn't worry too much about diversifying with to separate industries. Like, unless you're something super, super, super niche. If you're like, making, I can't think of something niche, titanium chia pets for the titanium chia pet industry, then yeah, maybe you need to look into some other industries as well. But like, the aerospace industry is not going anywhere. You don't need to diversify outside of aerospace. Same thing with medical. Like, that industry is not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, but just don't have, one customer
Yeah.
inside that. Like, have a diversity of customers. I wouldn't worry about a diversity of industry. If anything, I would say focus, focus, focus. Because if
Yeah.
you have to like maintain, ITARs and like ISO 9001 and like AS whatever and BS 123 different cert, then like you're just gonna spend all your time managing certifications and not making parts. But if you only need ITARs and ISO 9001 or whatever for aerospace, then you can just focus more and spend more time making parts.
But I'm always looking to diversify to a certain extent, and it's like you said, I would be okay if I had this multiple customers in the same industry, but so far it's worked out that I've gotten about one customer per industry.
And to be fair, specifically in firearms, that industry ebbs and flows like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not medical or aerospace. Like, it's driven by so many emotional factors that
Fear
things get
sells.
awfully inconsistent. Yeah.
So
Well, and like, if there's fear of a Democrat getting elected, sales skyrocket, and
yep.
weird stuff like that.
Yep.
Whereas like grandmas probably need hip replacements at largely the same rate over time.
Yep. Medical is probably a very stable field.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't matter what's going on in the economy, people have medical problems and
unless it's COVID, but yeah.
Well, even then, that probably makes it better, not worse. Yeah. So, but yeah. I mean,
Jason. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm about done. I probably made that a lot longer than it needed to be.
We did beat this question with I almost said with a dead horse, but that's not how that phrase works. Anyway, Jason S says, for a shop starting out, what would be the one piece of metrology equipment that you would say would be the most important piece of equipment to have, other than, of course, calipers and mics?
Oh, just go straight for CMM. No. That's a good question.
Are we omitting gauge pins?
Yeah,
gauge pins would be the first thing I would buy after mics and calipers.
Gauge pins or gauge blocks? I get a lot of use out of gauge blocks.
I would go pins first, then blocks. But I think part of that is because I make small stuff, other precise hole measuring tools don't work as well. It's I can't use bore mics on my parts.
It's kind of like asking what's your first machine you should get. It's like, what industry are you going into? Like, what parts are you trying to make? Like, it's all.
Do you make square holes or round holes?
Yeah, like what are you doing? Like, it's all so dependent upon what you're doing as to what direction. As like a general, like gauge pins, gauge blocks, micrometers, calipers.
A nice height gauge would be.
You don't have one. List. We've never had one.
They're nice.
Yeah,
nice height gauges are nice.
Mm-hmm.
I have a crappy height gauge, and it's crappy. But we have nice height gauges at school that I play with, and I want one.
Yeah. So,
but I would go with some sort of gauge set, because you need something to calibrate your tools with, or at least check the calibrations, and something to do comparisons off of.
Yeah, with the height gauge, though, you also need a granite table of some kind.
You do. Yeah, that's true. A surface plate.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably want to invest in a super nice one for my first surface plate, but height gauge also act as indicator stands. So again, if you're doing something that's where you need a fairly high certainty in your measurement, you can, just stick an indicator in your height gauge, use it as an indicator stand, build up a stack of gauge blocks, zero it on the gauge blocks, and then slide your part underneath.
Mm-hmm.
I do that a lot.
Yep.
And my crappy height gauge works great for that because it doesn't have to move. I really want a higher resolution indicator. I was looking at one probably on the Instant Machinist Discord. I think someone had I don't remember what it was. It was like a sub-micron indicator or something like that. It's like, I want that. As an established shop, what is one piece of metrology equipment that you wish you had?
I'm in the process of getting it, so I'll let you know. I've always wanted a CMM, just because, and I know it's not a magic bullet, that's gonna solve all my problems. If anything, it's gonna create more problems than it solves. It's gonna show me how bad of a machinist I really am. Really, metrology, when done well, shows you all of your deficiencies. and that's allows you to improve um, based off of known data. Because if you are just using calipers and indicators and whatnot, it can give you a somewhat of a picture. Um, but every piece of equipment that you bring in paints a better picture. And the better picture you have of the type of work you're actually producing versus what you think you're producing, um, will make you a better machinist.
I wish I had a nice optical comparator and or a nice like toolmaker's microscope. I have a cheap optical comparator, and it gets me out a lot of metrology binds, but it's not doing things like automatically calculating the size of holes and stuff like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
really wish it would. Again, we have a nice one at school that I haven't gotten too deep into, but it's really nice.
Fair enough.
James N., can you explain your first piece slash proofing out a program in inspection and how that changes for multiple pieces slash operations?
So usually, whenever I run through a program for the first time, it's not as much of a speed thing, although that does kind of play into it over time. My focus is making the part as safely and accurately as possible most of the time. Kind of depends on the part and the volumes to come. I see a lot of stuff when I'm running that first part and I'm really watching it, because you can watch a simulation, but when you see it run in the machine, you get a better feel for, am I pushing things too hard? Am I pushing them not hard enough? Is there meat on this bone where I can kind of tweak some things out of it? And as you kind of build up that experience, you can catch some of that more on the front end while you're programming. You can go, okay, this is a common thing that I see that I can kind of program into it. But the first run is, I know that there's a lot of people out there that can run the first one and just walk away from the machine and know that it's going to be good. And back when I was, I don't know, more confident that I could, just do that, I would. But I have a hard time doing that now just because so many things can go wrong that, like,
Well,
I want to
you're
see it
not on an
run.
1100 anymore either.
No. But like, it's one of those things where it's like your confidence level with your skill level, like your confidence level and your skill level kind of do like this.
The Dunning Kruger effect.
Where like the more you know things can go wrong, and so your confidence level goes down even though you're significantly better at what you're doing. And so there's a little bit of that effect, even though the ultimate goal is to get to the point where you can have an automated machine running, program something, run it through Complete, and just let it go and not look at it. Like, that is the ultimate goal, but um, I'm nowhere near that. And so the first program is just, I gotta watch it all the way
Do you
through.
single block through your first program?
No, typically, if I know that the first tools run properly, I know that I'm not going to have any crashes unless either a tool pulls out or the part shifts. Because now that might change as I have employees trying to set things up. I might be a little bit more cautious, but so far that hasn't been an issue. But um, like, I know all the tools are set up 90% of the time. 90% of my tooling is always set up and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's only, if a tool needs 20 tools, maybe two of them need to be set up. So the bulk of my tooling is almost always ready to go for the parts that we run.
I've gotten much more cautious about this now that I'm teaching students all the time. And like, because I'm going to teach the students to be super cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do a lot more single blocking. Generally, I will single block up until we get into like an adaptive cut,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll turn off single blocking and let it run the adaptive, and with a option stop turned on. And so then when it gets done with the adaptive, I'll go back into single blocking and single block until it gets to, the next tool path that would be painful to single block through.
Yeah. And when it comes to inspecting the first part, I try to inspect it in the machine as much as possible. If I have critical features that I want to hit, I'll try to take a test cut with the same amount of stock remaining as my finish pass to make sure that my tools are dialed in properly. If I set up a tool for the first time, I'm going to probably do that, you know, be a little bit more cautious and take extra passes just to validate that everything's cutting properly versus tooling that I have pre-set up. It depends on the material as well and the length of cut, how many test cuts I'll take with the finisher. But as time has gotten on, as I've gotten more confident, as my speeds and feeds have gotten done a lot better, I'm pretty comfortable to just like load up and go and know I'm going to hit it pretty much first time. But if I only have one piece of material, if it's a one-off part, like it all depends on downstream processes, how cautious I am on the first one. If it's a cheap part, 5 minutes, and I'm going to be doing thousands of them, I'll just let it run and know that if something goes sideways, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal, and it's not going to cost me that much in time and tooling and or problems. But if I've got a big part for a customer that only got one piece of material, I'm going to play that a lot more cautiously and go a lot slower. And while I might be comfortable with all of the tooling, I might turn on option stop even if I walk away. That way, if I walk away, I know it's going to stop. I'll check and make sure everything went properly before I go to the next tool.
Yeah. In terms of inspection, I definitely check as many things as I can along the way with it, in machine and between operations. I just realized that I broke my own rules with these parts that I was making because I didn't do that at all. I just kind of made them. Oh, and I was batching them, which is against my rules. But yeah, I'll check that first one really, really well. I'll measure everything on it that I am able to measure, and then build up as many go no go gauges as I can for subsequent operations.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make something, and I'm sure this exists already, but I want to make something that is like a steel L that has an indicator here on an adjustable thing, basically making it like a micrometer that I can just like drop the part in to check different dimensions and use that kind of as a go no go. I've also seen like it kind of looks like a micrometer, except it's got two sets of pins coming in from the side, and those will be set up in a go no go based off of gauge blocks, where like you want it to go through the first one but not through the second one, because I want to build out as much in process inspection as I can, but without making it too much of a pain.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what is your preferred way to create invoices and receive payments?
Pro shop.
Use ProShop, not
Yeah.
QuickBooks.
So for invoices, we use Pro Shop, but people typically pay through QuickBooks. So my preferred method is just a direct deposit into our account. But typically, you have to be a larger company with a history of purchasing, and then we'll set that up. But if you're just Joe Smo off the street, then cash or card. And then for that in between stage where you might be a large company, but we haven't set you up yet, some of those companies, they'll mail us checks, but that's probably my least favorite method.
Yeah. I mean, right now we're just using Stripe, and Stripe has some pretty good built-in features for doing it manually, and we're working on getting it hooked up through subtractmanufacturing.com. But I don't know if I like went back 5 years, or not 5 years, a year to where I was just Audacity Micro, I would probably still use Stripe for my invoicing because they provide a lot of ways for people to pay,
Mm-hmm.
like with direct deposit, where you don't have to deal with too much of the setup and stuff. And I don't think there's a fee if you do direct deposit through Stripe. Um, but I would probably still go with Stripe. Um, what are other ways? I've used my bank before, but that's always been very clunky. Small local credit union and stuff like that. I've used PayPal before, but that's probably the worst way because it looks super unprofessional and they take a big fee.
Mm-hmm.
I've also made many and many invoices in Excel and then just had them send me a check. I did that for a long time.
Yeah, before we had Pro Shop, everything that we did was through templates in Excel that we would then, create a PDF and send to the customer.
Yeah. If I was starting over, I would go straight to Stripe.
So
Uh, Joshua, do you have a passion, or do you have to be passionate about machining to be good, or can you be extremely passionate yet lacking skills?
I would say you can grow to be passionate over time.
Mm-hmm.
And just in the same way, you can start out as being passionate and that could fade over time. So passion is not really something that determines how skilled you are. It just helps with your enthusiasm to learn. Now, that being said, there's definitely some personality styles or personality types that are better at picking up machining than others. And I would say if I had to pick someone who would be a good machinist, it would be someone who had a really good attention to detail and liked getting into the minutia of all the little things that can affect machining and problem solving. Because like the amount of times there's small little things that you can figure out, but you might not know or understand in the beginning, like how material warps and different cutting strategies when you're programming. Like there's literally thousands of tiny little details that play into machining, and becoming a master in all of that just takes time and dedication. And if you enjoy that journey, passion will definitely help, but it's not required.
Yeah, I don't think it is necessarily required. Okay, for example, one of my first jobs out of engineering school was designing these big, super high volume compressors, and they
Mm-hmm.
they were low pressure. They maxed out at like 15 psi, but they would do like 3,000 plus CFM. So big compressors. I was good at that job. I certainly wasn't terrible at it. Most of these went to wastewater treatment plants to blow bubbles through poop. Nobody there had a passion for it. I didn't have a passion for it, but like we made a good product and like it was fine.
Yeah. And I would, have you ever watched Dirty Jobs?
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Rowe talks about passion and work a lot, where he said, he's met people who started businesses pumping poop and became highly passionate about it just over, how much time they spent with it. So, like, you can develop passion for almost anything. Like, I don't know of a sane person who would develop a passion for pumping poop naturally if it was, unless they had the environment where they had to do it every day and then they became passionate about it through that process of being forced to do it every day.
Yeah. But also like I think about some of these classes I've been teaching to like different union I was going to say apprentices, but a lot of the classes I've been teaching for the unions aren't even apprentice classes. They're like continuing education kind of classes. This last group I had in, they were from like the machine repair department, and they were
Mm-hmm.
basically just doing some cross training. It was actually, I found it very odd that they sent them to me to learn CNC machining as a machine repairman, but they were probably the best class I've ever had in terms of just like starting level of skill. They were very, very proficient, and they did a really good job at all of the machining stuff. And it wasn't because they had a passion, it wasn't because they had a huge background in it. They were just very professional. It's the only class that I've ever had where we would take a lunch break, and the lunch break would like end when I wasn't in the room, and then I would come back and they would be in the shop working. Like there was just
Mm-hmm.
a lot higher level of professionalism than my normal class, and they did well, even though with very little background. So no, I don't think you do have to be super passionate. I think you can just like, there's a job you got to do and just do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not every job has to be, the perfect job for you. Like sometimes you just have to do things. And when you are machining, like especially let's say you start a machining business, there's going to be some times where you're really, 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 really not passionate about making the parts, and you still have to make the parts.
Yeah.
So the passion it may get you through sometimes. It may particularly get you through the times that you're learning, but it really comes down to discipline and just bashing your head against the wall enough to make the parts.
It's really hard to be passionate at 2 a.m. in the morning on a part that you have to deliver at 6 a.m. that you've scrapped 5 times. and this is your last piece of material. If you can maintain passion in that environment, you are a very special person.
Yeah. Or if you misquoted a dumb production job and it's your third 2 a.m. day in a row and you're making minimum wage, not that I know anyone who's done that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I would say it doesn't hurt
It's
specifically about learning, and it
it's
will get you farther at being a passionate person versus someone who's not interested in it. But like, I don't know. If you're an adult, just be professional and you'll be fine.
passion. Passion is a nicer version of stubbornness, I think. Because if you really just need to be stubborn and just fight through it, and passion is the nice lens that you can wear whenever things feel like they're going really good. But ultimately, you just got to be stubborn and fight through it.
Albert says, any experiences in bead blasting? I'm potentially going to get stainless work that needs cosmetic finishes, including bead blasting. Any suggestions on equipment type, media, procedures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, would be appreciated.
I know we have that kind of stuff. I haven't thought about it in a long time. We started out with a Harbor Freight one, and there was a lot of YouTube videos on how to improve the Harbor Freight ones, and they made a big difference. I don't remember all the modifications we ended up doing to our Harbor Freight one, but when we moved to the new shop, we invested in a new one. It's a Scat Blast, I think is what it's called. It's the company that did it. They make very different ranges of different sizes of ones. And the biggest thing that I really like about them is that it's a foot pedal operated instead of a trigger. So depending on how much you're going to be doing, I would say make sure you get one that, and you can add a foot pedal trigger to the um, Harbor Freight one. What we ended up doing to our Harbor Freight one of the modifications we did was we added a foot pedal, and then we took like tape or some metal wire. I forget what exactly we did, but somehow we made it to where the trigger was always on, and then just added an inline foot pedal to control it. That was one of the upgrades we did to the Harbor Freight one. And then the other problem that you can run into them is making sure that your media is going down and into the tube. And there were some upgrades that we had to do with that um, on the Harbor Freight one that made a big difference. And then other than that, it's just picking the right grit for what your customer wants and the right type of media. Our customer just wants like an 80 grit, and so we just get a regular 80 grit media. Um,
Sand blasting, not beads.
yeah, sandblasting. There is a different bead blasting media, which provides a different texture, a different look to it. I think it's a shinier finish than sandblasting. Um, which I think we have some of that media. I think I've used it like twice for cosmetic stuff. But most of our stuff, the reason we sandblast it is because the customer is looking for a uniform finish across all their vendors. And so sandblasting was the easiest way to accomplish that.
Yeah, I haven't done bead blasting specifically. Everything I've done has been sandblasting and prep for either paint or powder coat. So I don't know too much about that specifically. I would say if you are using Harbor Freight cabinets and you're using different medias, just get a second cabinet for a different media because the cabinet is cheap and changing medias is time expensive.
Yeah.
Airflow is a big deal with that stuff. So if you can put your cabinet closer to your compressor and then also invest in high flow fittings everywhere you can. Your
Water.
air should also be dryish.
Yeah. Our old shop, we were always fighting water in the airlines. We had like, I think at one point we had four different air to water separators, and air and water would still get through all of them. And so we were going to invest in the Harbor Freight. It's like $400 for like a Harbor Freight air dehumidifier thingy,
Air dryer.
air dryer. Yeah, for your normal air compressor lines. If we were still in that shop, we were going to buy that, but we were planning on getting a screw compressor with a built-in air dryer, so we just held off until then.
I would also say if you're going to invest in something, invest in dust collection because you really, 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 really don't want to be breathing that stuff. And then also, it actually helps it cut better the better dust collection you have, because as the media breaks down, it will like mix in with the fresh media. So you'll end up with like dust in your beads. And
Yeah.
the having a really good dust collector will get that broken down media out, and it'll give you a cleaner looking finish.
And then depending on what type of finish you're going for, if it's a cosmetic finish, you might also look into vapor honing. We are looking at doing that for aluminum. I don't know how well it would work on stainless, but we are looking at vapor honing for aluminum. And we had some parts tests sent out for that. And vapor honing is really nice for cosmetics.
I would also think about how you are handling the parts afterwards. Bead blasting probably isn't as bad as sandblasting, but I would suspect that you could still mess up the finish pretty well. And you'd
Yeah.
hate to bead blast a part and then scratch it and then have to re-bead blast it. So make racks or whatever you need to
Yeah.
handle it. You also probably are going to want to look at some sort of cleaning afterwards. Again, this is probably worse for sandblasting than it is for bead blasting.
So
But
really, for us, we just need to blow off the parts with fresh, clean air. The biggest thing is that if you touch a sandblasted part with your hands, it soaks up all the oils because the surface is like really absorbent. Um, and so, depending on like your cosmetics and what your customer wants, you after you sandblast, you really only want to handle it with gloves if it's something that they're really sensitive to.
I would when I was talking about cleaning, I was thinking more inside holes.
Oh,
Like inside threaded holes was a thing that we always had issues with,
oh,
or excuse me, not threaded holes, blind holes.
we always try to
Threaded
stick.
holes we would cap.
Yeah, I was gonna say we always try to cap the holes. We either use screws if they're threaded to try to block them, or if they're small enough holes that we need to block off. We have a kit that we got for Cerakoting that we use for blocking off stuff in the sandblaster.
All right, did we beat that one with a dead horse?
I think that one's thoroughly dead.
Okay.
All right, guys. Our fast, quick episode has turned into an hour and a half, which is our standard. Yeah. So, thanks for hanging out with us, and yeah, hopefully we had some useful information this episode. I feel like we got into a lot of topics this time, a lot more than I thought we were going to talk about. So, that was fun. This has been Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Subtract Manufacturing LLC. So we'll catch up with you guys later. Taps and patience, our daily grind. In this machine shop, we'll always find joyous struggles, all intertwined. Taps and patience, one of a kind.